Okay, let's get into some of those inconsistencies in the Warren Commission's investigation. What are some of the things that make people go, hmm?
Well, one big one is the magic bullet theory. That's the idea that one bullet, just one, went through President Kennedy's neck and then wounded Governor Connolly. He was in the car too, right?
Wait, one bullet did all that damage. That's pretty hard to swallow.
That's what a lot of critics say. They point to things like the bullet fragment weights, the angles, even the severity of the wounds. Some of the doctors who treated Kennedy and Connolly had their doubts about how that bullet could have traveled that way.
So how did the Warren Commission explain that?
They said it was possible. They even had an Army specialist recreate the shooting to prove their point.
Yeah.
But it's still one of those things that people debate to this day.
And then there are the witness deaths. It's kind of hard to ignore the fact that so many people who were connected to the assassination died in the years that followed. It's a bit creepy, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a really controversial topic. Some people look at those deaths and think, wait a minute, is this a cover-up? Were these people silenced?
It does make you think of like a spy movie or something.
I know, but there are strong counter-arguments to that, too. Vincent Bugliosi, the author we talked about earlier, he basically debunked a lot of those witness death claims in his book. He says most of them were natural deaths or just totally unrelated to the assassination.
So maybe people are just looking for connections where there aren't any.
The human mind loves to find patterns, right? Even when they might not be real.
Didn't the HSCA look into those witness deaths too?
They did, and their findings lined up with Bugliosi's argument. No evidence linking the deaths to the assassination.
So the massive cover-up idea might be more fiction than fact. It's interesting how these narratives can take hold even when evidence suggests otherwise.
Exactly. And this whole idea that evidence was tampered with or hidden is another big one when it comes to the JFK assassination.
Yeah, we've already talked about the magic bullet, but there's more. Like the paper bag that Oswald supposedly used to hide the rifle, those backyard photos of Oswald holding the gun, even the Zapruder film.
Some people even say the Zapruder film was edited to hide a second shooter.
Right, like they cut out the part that showed someone else firing. But is there any evidence to support that?
Not really. But there were also those two people who claimed to have filmed the assassination but said the authorities took their films.
Oh yeah, Gordon Arnold and Beverly Oliver.
Their stories are definitely interesting, but again, there's no real proof.
And then there's all those documents that were kept secret for years. You can't blame people for thinking that's fishy.
You're right. A lot of them were eventually made public, but some are still classified, and even the ones that were released, some have parts blacked out.
It's like we only have part of the story. No wonder people are still trying to figure it all out. So what if we move away from Oswald as the lone gunman for a second? Who are some of the other suspects that conspiracy theorists point to?
Oh man, the list is long. And that just goes to show how many theories are out there, which is exactly what we'll be getting into next.
Okay, so we've gone deep on the evidence, or lack thereof, and explored some of the inconsistencies that have fueled countless conspiracy theories. Now it's time to really step into the world of those theories.
Right, like we're stepping into the shadows a bit. But remember, we're not saying any of these are true.
Exactly. We're just exploring the arguments and the supposed evidence behind them. Think of this as a tour through the most popular what-if scenarios surrounding JFK's assassination. And I think a good place to start is with the mafia. It's a classic.
It really is. The mafia theory suggests that organized crime, they were pretty upset with Kennedy's crackdown on their operations. Some say they wanted revenge.
It's like something out of a movie, but the mafia was incredibly powerful back then.
Oh, absolutely. Some people even believe figures like Carlos Marcello, one of the big mafia bosses, had the motive and the means to pull off a hit on the president.
And what about Jack Ruby, the guy who killed Oswald? Didn't he have mob ties?
That's been debated for years. Some researchers think Ruby might have acted on behalf of the mob to silence Oswald, prevent him from revealing a bigger conspiracy.
It's like a whole other layer of intrigue. But hold on, wasn't Marcello in prison when the assassination happened?
He was. But some people theorize that he could have orchestrated the whole thing from behind bars. The mafia had a huge network, and some believe Marcello had enough influence to make it happen.
Okay, so the mafia had a motive. They potentially had the means. What about the CIA? They always seem to pop up in these kinds of conversations.
The CIA theory claims that some people within the agency were unhappy with Kennedy's policies and might have taken matters into their own hands.
That's a chilling thought. Like, elements within our own government targeting the president. What policies were they supposedly so upset about?
Mainly Kennedy's handling of the Bay of Pigs invasion and his stance on communism. Some thought he wasn't tough enough. They saw him as a threat to their Cold War agenda.
It plays into that fear of government conspiracies, doesn't it? And let's be honest, the CIA's history with covert operations and, regime change doesn't exactly help their case.
You're right. Their track record does lend some credibility to the theory.
And then, of course, there's the Lee Harvey Oswald connection.
Oh, yeah. Oswald's a whole mystery in himself. His defection to the Soviet Union, his time in Mexico City right before the assassination, even his alleged contact with CIA operatives. It all adds fuel to the fire.
He's almost like a walking conspiracy theory. Okay, let's move on to another major player in the Cold War, Fidel Castro.
Some people believe that Castro, wanting revenge for the Bay of Pigs invasion and all those attempts to overthrow him, ordered Kennedy's assassination.
Makes sense on the surface. Castro definitely had a reason to want Kennedy gone.
He did, and the timing is interesting too. It happened just a year after the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the tensest moments of the Cold War.
It's hard not to see the potential connection there. All right, we've covered the mafia, the CIA, Fidel Castro. What about Lyndon B. Johnson, Kennedy's own vice president?
The LBJ theory is definitely one of the most controversial. It suggests that Johnson, driven by ambition, might have orchestrated the assassination to become president himself.
He did benefit directly from Kennedy's death.
True. And there are rumors about a strained relationship between him and the Kennedys, which only adds to the speculation. But it's important to note that there's no concrete evidence linking Johnson to the assassination.
So, more of a what-if than a solid theory. And let's not forget about the theory involving the anti-Castro Cuban exiles.
This one suggests that the exiles, who were furious with Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, decided to take revenge.
It's understandable why they would be angry. Kennedy supported the invasion initially, then pulled back on air support, leading to its failure. That had to be a huge betrayal for the exiles who were risking their lives.
Absolutely. A lot of them felt abandoned, blamed Kennedy for their defeat.
So we have all these different suspects, each with a motive, a story that could be ripped from a headline. But with so many theories out there, how do we even begin to make sense of it all?
That's the question that has baffled people for decades. We may never know the full truth.
It's a reminder that history is rarely straightforward. Sometimes there are more questions than answers.
Absolutely. And the JFK assassination is a prime example of that. It forces us to grapple with the limits of our knowledge. The fact that sometimes we just can't know for sure.
It makes you think about the enduring power of mystery. Even with all the information we have at our fingertips today, some events remain shrouded in enigma.
And maybe that's what keeps us coming back to these stories, trying to piece together the puzzle.
So after taking this deep dive with us, what are your thoughts? Do you think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, or was there something more at play? It's a question that will likely continue to be debated for years to come.
It's a reminder that history is a living thing, constantly being reinterpreted as we uncover new information and new perspectives.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.